Last night during the debate, Trump said a few times that the abortion issue has torn this country apart for 52 years. And by him putting it back to the states, he was somehow solving the problem of this division because now it's up to the states and the people in the states to decide. But what he fails to explain or probably understand here is why the issue of abortion has torn this country apart for 52 years. Namely, the reason is because of evangelical conservative Christianity or conservative Catholicism. So what else was going on during that time in the early 70s, right around the time that Roe v. Wade was passed? Okay, Bob Jones University started admitting black students because they lost their tax-exempt status for racial discrimination. They did not admit black students for 17 years after Brown versus Board of Education. Even after changing its admission policy, they still denied admission to anyone who dated or married someone of a different race, advocated for interracial marriages, or associated with supporters of interracial marriages. Bob Jones University did not want to adhere to desegregation. They wanted to keep their schools segregated, and they brought this to the Supreme Court and lost in 1983. This issue is actually the origin story of the religious right and the moral majority. Ronald Reagan promised Bob Jones University that he would help them with their case in the Supreme Court so that they could keep their school segregated. But they needed the GOP to win. They needed Ronald Reagan to win. And the Christians were not too keen on this idea of racism, especially in the North. So the moral majority created the wedge issue of abortion. They started blasting Christian media with anti-abortion rhetoric and pro-life rhetoric and lies and propaganda and showing pictures of little teeny babies in the palm of hands, to elicit some emotional response, even though that is not a factual picture still. So they began to easily garner support for the GOP so they could win and segregate their schools. And because of this anti-abortion propaganda, the Christians, the evangelical Christians, the conservative Christians began to support the GOP and became indoctrinated into the Democrats are evil and the GOP are the Christians because of abortion. That's what's tearing this country apart. That's what has been tearing this country apart for 52 years, is the moral majority and the evangelical Christian leaders tearing this country apart over a single issue and using propaganda to brainwash their congregations since they were little children into believing that abortion is murder and there should never be any exceptions. And they don't talk about health care. They don't talk about how women need abortion sometimes to save their lives. They don't talk about who's going to decide if it's an exception for incest, rape, or life of mother. What, are we going to have panels to decide that? Who's on the panels? They don't discuss any of that. All they do is lie to their congregations to get support for the GOP so that corporations can continue to hurt our nation and hurt the middle class and not give us any sort of health care or child tax credits or worry about climate change or protect our children in schools for gun violence. All of this can be traced back to the fact that the Christian right wanted to keep their schools segregated. That is what has torn this country apart for 52 years, Donald Trump, because the Christian conservatives have used abortion to get people on their side because of racism, because of white supremacy.